The county attorney's office, we're actually responsible for bringing people together to become forever families. And while the criminal side of the law is how the public typically perceive our office, the public needs to know that this office also handles uncontested adoptions for county residents, and that's handled by our Adoption Services Bureau. So whether a family is looking to adopt a grandchild or a step-parent's looking to adopt a stepchild, this office takes part in providing a service free of charge to our community. So far this year, this office has finalized 126 adoptions, and that allows 126 children to be welcomed into homes that will love them and who want them. So as we speak, we have even more adoptions in queue waiting to happen before the end of this calendar year. As I mentioned, the adoptions through our office are handled out of our Adoption Services Bureau, and this was a bureau that was reestablished back in 2020, and it works with very limited resources and staffing. We have one prosecutor, one paralegal, and one legal support specialist. So 3 people who have completed 126 adoptions in 1 year, and that's an accomplishment that everybody in this office is very, very proud of. As I mentioned, this was reestablished in 2020. Prior to that, our office was outsourcing the adoptions, and we were paying about $1 million per calendar year to an outside adoption law firm. By meeting the statutory requirement by using the in-house staff that I spoke of, we're saving that $1 million annual cost, and actually we're saving the taxpayers that money. So in fact, we've brought the cost down from an average of almost $90,000 per month to just $3,687,000. I'm sorry, so $3,687 per month. So November was National Adoption Month, and our office was proud to participate in National Adoption Day on November 19th. And we were honored to participate in the process of giving children a forever home. And I just want to recognize the support staff and the attorney and paralegal that participate in that for our office and work so hard on this effort that is so worthwhile. And just as a personal note, I remember when one of the attorneys that I worked with when I was in the Sex Crimes Bureau adopted her children through this process, and we were all able to serve as honorary deputy county attorneys on that, and it was an incredibly special occasion. So with that, I understand some of you have some questions, so I'm here to answer them.
I'll go first. I have a question from my colleague Ashley Holden. So our newsroom has heard from some of the victims' families in the Aaron Saucedo case. Big case, a lot of victims, and they feel like they are not being informed enough of what's happening. And obviously the case keeps getting pushed back. It's been several years. So what can you say about that? The fact that victims look like they've been getting enough updates about where things stand and why it's taking the time it's taking.
Okay, I'm going to repeat back the question because I've been hearing from people watching this that they're not able to hear the reporters, so that's what I'm doing. So Dave was asking about the Saucedo case, and that was a situation, that's a pending case where apparently some next of kin are concerned that they're not, that the case is not moving along quickly enough, and they're seeking answers on that. While I'm going to be careful about what I say about that because it's obviously an incredibly serious and tragic case for so many people, what I can say is because there are so many witnesses and victims involved, it is simply going to take a long time. As far as the concerns that they're not getting updates that they feel like they need to have, I have reached out to the division that handles victim notification, and so we're going to make sure that they are updated so that they feel like they've been brought in to know what's going on in that case. But certainly we want to get that done as quickly as possible, but there are just some realities when you have something like that that's that complicated. We want to do it right.
So then I have another set of quick questions. Recently the State Bar of Arizona admonished one of your death penalty prosecutors, Erin Otis, for her conduct on the bench, and then also for her communications with this office while she was on the bench seeking employment. you were in communication with Ms. Otis while she was a sitting judge, texting her about certain job opportunities. Was that appropriate for you to do as a division chief at the time, to be texting with the sitting judge and not making sure that conflicts were discussed and checked?
Well, David, as you know, so the question is, I need to remember to do this. The question was that one of our attorneys has been recently admonished by the State Bar of Arizona and previously by the Judicial Conduct Commission. One of the concerns was that she was seeking employment during the time that she had a remaining criminal case, even though she had transferred to another non-criminal assignment. And your question was it appropriate for me as division chief at the time to be communicating with her about employment? Actually, I've issued a statement about that to you in the past, as you know, and that simply was a matter of somebody who used to work here asking what the current salary structure is for this office, and me just simply telling her what that was. I was not in any position to negotiate employment. As far as her discussions with other people that did have that ability, I've obviously was not in that chain of command at the time.
You were discussing specific jobs with her, though, both bureau chief opportunities and maybe in the capital division, so it very much looked like you were in a position from your own text messages to negotiate or to discuss that with the sitting judge.
That's the question is, was I discussing specific jobs with her, and does that show that I had the ability? The bottom line is no, I did not have the ability to negotiate any sort of job or have any hiring or firing authority. And what I would say is to that situation, obviously it's been fully reviewed by the State Bar of Arizona, as you know, and then her other conduct that you brought up has been reviewed by the Judicial Conduct Commission. And as you also know from our discussions, I think your discussions that went back as far as February with her, that she has taken responsibility for her actions. What I will say about Erin is that she is an excellent prosecutor who's dedicated her career to public service, either on the bench or prosecuting cases where people have lost loved ones to homicide. She also was very much a part of prosecuting sex trafficking cases and really spearheaded those efforts. That said, as county attorney, it's my expectation that people in this office will conduct themselves with the highest levels of integrity and professionalism. And we are held to a higher standard, as we should be, and I fully agree with that. We have to have the moral authority. But as a leader, I recognize we're all human. That was one remaining case that happened after she left the criminal bench. So nobody is perfect, and when somebody does make a mistake, I expect them to take responsibility for it. I expect them to be held accountable for it, and then I expect everybody to strive to do better.
So, but you're still not quite answering my question. The State Bar admonished her for her discussions with this office, about jobs. So if that's not appropriate for her, is that appropriate for you?
I was not admonished in any way by the State Bar for anything that happened,
Well,
and
you
that
weren't under investigation,
I wasn't.
but
Well, David, you can try to portray that as me negotiating employment with
You
her.
were negotiating. I'm not. You were discussing job opportunities with the sitting judge, and I'm surprised, I guess, that a division chief and now sitting county attorney didn't think that perhaps raises some appearance of impropriety and being too close to the bench. Clearly it did, because the State Bar hit her for it.
What I did was I informed her of what the new salary structure was, because it had changed since she left.
That's not what the text message shows. You discuss specific jobs. Bureau chief or capital, how do those sound to you? That's your text message.
I was simply giving her the salary structure, and the salary structure is dependent upon what jobs the person takes. So, no, I don't feel like anything was wrong in that. And again, as I said, the bar has fully investigated it. The Judicial Conduct Commission has investigated other things, and they've made the statement. And that is my statement in this matter.
Do you stand by her ethics and whether or not she's fit to prosecute people to put them to death?
She's not putting people to death. She is prosecuting cases, and that is a matter that is reviewed by not only the judges, but ultimately by the jury. Ultimately, the appeals
All right,
courts look at
Let me
it.
scratch the question before we get too far. So do you feel that she is an ethical enough person to prosecute people in death penalty cases?
I accept her statement that she's taken responsibility for her actions. I accept the fact that she's been looked at and has been admonished by 2 different state agencies. And yes, I accept that she is going to strive to do better. And if you have information that that's not the case, then I would be interested in looking at that.
So
I mean, do you have information that this type of behavior is ongoing?
Have you read the State Bar's final findings?
I'm asking you, do you have information that this is ongoing?
Yeah,
That she's not,
The State Bar's public file is full of some pretty concerning information.
do you have information that there's something ongoing that we should take a look at?
What do you mean ongoing? Like current cases?
I said that
There are cases that are still in appeal and will be brought up in PCR where her past conduct, which involves conduct involving her negotiation with the job with this office, will certainly be an ongoing issue. And about her discussing jobs while she's not only sentencing someone, but also ruling on motions about whether jurors were hung, which would throw the whole case into a different direction. Those are significant issues, right? The matters in which she is still, in which she was prosecuting for this office in recent years, the English case, the Mason case in which these issues were brought up, this office spent a lot of money to keep her on those cases only to have those be passed off because of the exact issues we're talking about. So yes, obviously there are ongoing things, right? If you're asking if there are current cases, I mean, I'm asking about the Judicial Commission, I'm asking about the State Bar's investigation into matters that went on. I guess I'm surprised why you're trying to now twist it to ask me to give you proof of your employee's option in something that I'm not asking about.
well, that doesn't actually answer my question, but what I will say,
Questions, though. I'm the journalist and you're the public official, and that's why I'm
well,
here.
and I'm
Because no one has agreed to an interview on this throughout the entire year.
David, I've talked to you on the phone about this. I've issued statements to you. This office has issued statements to you. You've been
You've not had
talked
an
to
interview like
repeatedly.
this moment right now. You've spoken to me on the phone where I've spoken to your press people and you sit there, but you have not really spoken.
I
That's
have talked to you
not- that's not a
personally
fair
one-on-one
representation.
on the phone on this, and I've issued personal statements. And I'm sorry that that's not sufficient for you. What I'm saying is if there are additional concerns, I'm willing to listen to them.
Okay.
I've listened to you. Are there any other questions? Jason?
All right, just talking about the midterm election.
Mhm.
A very colorful meeting with Board of Supervisors on Monday.
Yes.
There's been a lot of discussion about threats against elected officials. What threats are you aware of? What is your office doing? Is it still a concern?
Yeah. Right now, we don't have any submittals in front of our office concerning threats made to any individuals related to the election matters, such as the Board of Supervisors. But I do have, my understanding is that there are cases that are being investigated currently by law enforcement related to threats of individuals. What I will say is this, if those cases are submitted to our office eventually, we will pursue them vigorously. People need to know, and I understand that people are extremely, invested in the outcome of this election, and that's appropriate. That's the American way, to care about who our government is run by and our elected officials. But threats of violence or statements intended to incite violence against elected officials or people involved in the election process, employees, are completely inappropriate, and people need to understand that they are illegal, and we will take them very seriously.
So you're at a point where law enforcement is doing some investigations, but
Yes.
nothing has reached your office?
Correct. Correct.
Also, we had another, a couple of officer-involved shooting incidents overnight.
Mhm.
We keep seeing these over and over again. Your office, you feel like people are just becoming more brazen, they're acting out, not listening to officers. What's your sense, what are you seeing in the community, and why do you keep seeing these numbers go up as far as people confronting officers, disobeying commands, and leads to officer-involved shooting?
I think it would be, so the question is, why do I think that officer-involved shootings are on the increase? And, you know, to try to put it on one specific factor, I think would be not do justice to a myriad of factors. But what I would say is that police are doing an incredibly difficult job. And as somebody who sits and reviews every single one of these cases, I do see situations where people are not listening to the police and respecting the police. That is one factor. And we're putting a priority on reviewing these cases so that we can get answers out, not only to the police themselves, but also to the individuals affected, either next of kin or the individual who was shot or fired upon. I can give you some updated stats on that because obviously that's something that's been a priority for me. So when I took office back on April the 20th, we had 59 officer-involved shootings waiting to be reviewed. Right now, we have 35 that are pending review, and of course, that's with additional cases that have come in. We're waiting on completion of a couple of more submittals because we get the investigation sometimes before we get, for example, the medical reports or toxicology reports. We have streamlined the process to allow us to get to these more quickly, and with the exception of federal cases that go through a federal process first, all cases through 2020 have been reviewed. And my goal is to continue to get more caught up so that we do not have long gaps of time between the submittal being completed and the submittal being reviewed by my office.
So where are you on your backlog? Do you feel like you've made some significant strides, but there is still a backlog in the review of these cases?
There's always going to be a backlog in the sense that there are always going to be cases that are not reviewed yet. The question is, how long is it between the time those cases are submitted to us and the time we get to them? And what I would say is, when I took office 7 months ago, there were 59 waiting to be reviewed, some from 2+ years earlier. Today there are 35. We have reviewed everything from 2020 that is not going through the federal review process. And so we want to review them in a timely fashion. It's never going to be a situation where we're down, it would be great, to 0. I would love to get down to 0, but that's not practical. What's going to be practical is that we review it in a timely fashion.
And from the reviews that you've made, any common thread as to what we're seeing? I mean, does it run the gamut? Is there, anything as far as you can grasp as to why we keep seeing these?
There are many factors that go into effect. Drugs is certainly a factor. Alcohol is certainly a factor that we see involved in that. So it's very concerning. And again, the police are doing an incredibly difficult job right now.
And I guess we're seeing more violence towards police officers.
Yes.
And that's concerning for this office as well.
We are definitely seeing more violence toward. We are definitely seeing violence toward police officers, and that is obviously top concern for us, as well as violence against any other member of our community. And that's something that needs to be stressed as well, as we're seeing an uptick in violence, period, toward others. And we've seen some horrendous crimes happen in this past month. And it's very important that we address this as an office. One of the factors I think that's involved in this is police officer numbers being so far down, and we need to get those numbers back up. We've instituted a policy here so that we take cases involving serious offenses involving weapons, such as aggravated assault, armed robbery, seriously, and that those mandate prison time to address that. One of the things that we're doing to address it. Is that it?
Thank you, Mike.
Okay. All right.